Hello and welcome to the Embodied Psyche. I'm Hannah Bernstein and I'm here today with Arianna Gouveia. Arianna, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your work and background?
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. I've been doing Chi Nei Tsang, which is internal organ applied Qigong. So it's internal organ massage for more than 20 years, since 1999. So it's been a minute, as long as I've ever done anything. No. It's a really amazing modality, and I fell into it. I always knew that I would do massage on the side of whatever creative modalities I was doing, and but it was kind of my entry point was through Chi Nei Tsang. So I started with that for my own healing, and it was so incredible. You know, going to the gut is such a kind of an untouched area in general, especially in the West. When you go to massage school, I'm also a massage therapist. So when you go to school, they'll maybe spend 2 weeks on the belly and go, be careful. You just don't poke too hard, So it's really, it's interesting to specialize there because we're literally, detoxing the organs, the liver, the spleen, the pancreas. And then also there's that physical level. So you're working gently in the belly. A lot of times I'll combine, regular massage with the Chi Nei Tsang. So I'll do full body and then that work. But there's also emotional charges that get stuck in the organs. And, Chinese medicine, they say the organs are the mother of the emotions. So, it can be really powerful, and there can be like years and years of congestion that are stuck in the gut until they finally have that opportunity where it's safe and they're able to move and digest and transform. So it's very, very powerful work. And I also use a lot of essential oils in my work, which I love. I've been using them for quite a long time. So I like to, I also studied Reiki as well, but I really like to just pull a lot of different, modalities together and have the tools. So I'm just present with whoever is coming to me and whatever is needed. I'm just kind of holding space for that, So yeah, that's a little bit about how I work, sort of.
That's fascinating. Yeah. You spoke to briefly your own healing. Can you talk about that a little bit, about how you came to that?
Yeah. There was a point in my life, I had done some traveling. I was living in Ecuador for a little while, and I got really sick. And so I needed belly work. And I was searching and I really didn't find anything. And then I thought, well, Mayan abdominal massage, and I was searching for teachers, and I just couldn't come up with somebody who was local, who was, it wasn't in the cards. And so a friend of my mom's, she's a radical woman, always doing cutting edge, healing modalities. She took a Chi Nei Tsang class and then invited my mom. So she went and she said, oh, you got to take this class. I mean, it's amazing. This teacher, Gilles Marin. So I went and I took the Chi Nei Tsang class, and it was beautiful. It was at Harbin Hot Springs, 5 days of just immersion into, the belly. And I volunteered at one point in the class to be the guinea pig, And as he was working on me, I had this incredible, overwhelming emotional release and just crying, but like from the depths. And then as it started to move and transform, and he really just held that, stayed with it, I started then to laugh and to just like go into this whole other, it was this incredible healing experience for me. And so that was it. It was like, okay, perfect. I found my modality. So I just dove into it from then for the next, however long it's been now. So that was my entry point into the body work. And I did massage, traditional Swedish later, other modalities later, but I was very grateful to find that.
That's wonderful. And how about with your clients? What kind of transformations have you seen them go through with your work?
one of the things that's really powerful when I've had the opportunity to see someone regularly, because it's not always like that. I don't always get to see someone weekly for a year or two, you know. But when I've had those clients, it's been really incredible because I had one particular client where she was dealing with this intense anxiety, insane anxiety, had a lot of different health conditions, but it was debilitating, and she couldn't, you know, practically leave the house. And when her husband would go away, she was just terrified. She was just in this state of panic. And so we started doing weekly sessions. She found me somehow. And after about 2 months, that started shifting. And she started, you know, at first she was really stiff, and she just started releasing. We started opening up, started moving through things. Very traumatic background. A lot of trauma had, you know, contributed to that. But it was amazing because I noticed probably after about 4 months of weekly sessions, she was like a different person, and she was starting to even go out and like teach meditation classes for a while. And her sister, who I also worked on, said, you know, this is the first time I've had my sister back in 8 years. Like I feel like I have my sister again. So, you know, those kind of experiences are so transformative and so gratifying for me as a therapist to be able to be like, wow, I mean, this is really valid. This work is really, really potent. And gosh, I mean, all kinds of amazing experiences, but I think some of those emotional transformations are pretty powerful when you have that, you know, substantial amount of work in it. I mean, even one session can be incredibly powerful, but you know, in that case, it was a little deeper.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can kind of take me through some of the basics of belly work. I sometimes hear people talk a little anecdotally about, like, what's an example? I hear a lot like anger is stored in the liver. Do you notice themes like that? Like there's certain organs that tend to hold on to specific emotions?
Yeah. But a lot of times when I'm working, I'll just feel an emotional charge as a resistance in the body. Like I'll go into, say, the liver, I'll go underneath the rib cage, and I'll, you know, it's not forceful. You always go in with a sense of listening, which I think is really a powerful, you know, way of approach for healing. Because if you go in there kind of like trying to jab, the body's going to resist. But if you go in there gentle, and then you still feel resistance, where the body's like, you know, like, don't go in there. Then you go, okay. And you just hold, and you just kind of listen, and you just like stay with it. Then the body goes, okay, I can relax a little. And then things start happening, you know. I feel like that's where the energy work kicks in, the Qigong, the applied Qigong. Because you can go in physically, but the way that Chi Nei Tsang works is that you literally, you're cultivating Qi energy. So you're, you know, you're not using your own energy source as you're not healing the person. You're literally acting as a channel. You're opening up so that you can receive the divine energy to pass through you. And so it's a really, when you start to channel the energy then, which is a pretty tangible energy, the chi is a pretty thick energy on the energy spectrum. That's when you'll see energy releases in the body. And a lot of times be like jerks and like physical. You'll see like just funny things, you know. I remember when I first was practicing, I would like be like, you know, try not to laugh because sometimes the face would do really funny things. You know, or someone will go into a light snore, or, you know, really interesting things where they'll be aware, but they can't do anything about it. So, yeah, that's kind of, you know, there is sort of a pattern as to how you would do a belly work session. You know, you want to kind of go in a certain, you want to kind of clear, you want to open up the large intestine, you want to clear energetically the large intestine first before going into the liver, probably, because, you know, you want to have the elimination organs open so that things have a place to flow. So you're not stopping things up, you know. Yeah, we do a lot of opening, like kind of pulsing, you know, working with the veins and kind of clearing any congestion in the veins down the femoral arteries, down the legs, the main, you know. So yeah, it's awesome. I mean, every time I do a session, it's like you do the techniques, but then you just sort of pull back and you go, okay, what is this body trying to express? You know, what's it trying to say? What's what next stage needs to happen in this person's healing? So it's really not ever forcing, you know.
Yeah, I love the emphasis that you place on listening to the body and not being forceful and being gentle with the resistance that comes up. I'm curious,
yeah,
how has this time period shifted the way that you work? How do you work within a time of pandemic?
At first, everything shut down. So I went on an artist retreat in my own home, and I just did, you know, whatever else, like, you know, and that was beautiful. It was really nice. I appreciated it, actually. And then, you know, as things opened up, the spa opened up, a spa that I worked at opened up, and we did sessions for a little while, and then just, you know, one-on-one with clients. You know, I think there's been all this like regulation, okay, only outside and with it, you know, the protective gear and all that. So you just follow, you know, the regulations, and I think also it's a time where people are, you know, there's this like low grade consistent stress that everyone is dealing with. So even though everyone was really freaked out in the beginning, I think as the time wore on, people were recognizing how much they needed this work, and just, you know, body work in general. Not everyone, of course, but, you know, that, like, a lot of people aren't seeing people, they're not touching people, they're not hugging people. And we're such social creatures, and, you know, just hugging yourself and touching yourself releases oxytocin, and that's beautiful. But to have that interaction with other people is so healing. And so I found that, you know, people are still interested and still need the work. And yeah, you know, and teaching more and kind of doing some panels. And we did like a healers POC panel where we kind of it was like a healing, you know, gathering and sharing ideas and sharing different modalities. I did a meditation. So I think we've all kind of looked to other ways that we can continue with our self-care, because my gosh, when you have that chronic low-grade stress, as we're all dealing with, you know, outside circumstances, the nervous system just gets so frazzled, and it becomes like fight or flight all the time. We may not really realize it. So, you know, something like Chi Nei Tsang, there's so many nerves, you know, that innervate the mesentery and the organs. And so when you work in the gut, you're putting the body into parasympathetic response mode. And so, you know, if you're in sympathetic, that's the go, go, go all the time, right? And your body functions literally start closing down. They just like kind of stop. So to be in parasympathetic response mode, that's like rest and repose. And then our body can repair and do what it needs to do for healing. But, you know, I think a lot of people are in that fight or flight, and it's just really necessary to have a few tools that can help put us into that space, sleep better, regenerate, cells, very important, right?
Very important. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the panel that you were on, because I mean, of course, the healer has been an important role in like every culture from the dawn of time. But I think here in America, with the way privilege functions and like the culture of white supremacy, sometimes the healing world can look kind of white. And I guess I wonder if you'd be willing to speak to the importance of the role of POC healers.
Oh, it's so important. It's so important. Just like it is in any modality, psychotherapy as well. It's, people need to feel safe, number one, in order to heal. And a lot of times, you need to see other people that look like you from your own community. You need to have, the knowledge that, we all have healers in all of our communities, and we're all legitimate. And so it's, it's really important to have healing practitioners of color that that people can go to, that they can have options of people to go to hold that safe space. So yeah, we had a panel. It was really beautiful. Just a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, and just coming together and sharing ideas and making it more accessible, yoga, qigong, like all of these different, body work modalities. It's, we have to know that it's for all of us. It's for everyone. It's not just a white people thing. It's an everybody thing. And that we all, borrow from other cultures. I mean, acupuncture and, Ayurveda. I mean, there's so many different modalities that have beautiful, rich, history. Nutritionally, Dr. Sebi's work. I mean, indigenous knowledge. I mean, communing with plants, animal spirit medicine. I mean, there's shamanic traditions. There's so much we can pull from. And it's important to have that lineage, the authentic lineage. So yeah, that's a little bit of my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love your thoughts. I've heard one of the big criticisms of the way that Western therapy, Western healing sometimes gets presented is something like this idea that the ideal is to return to a state of safety, that safety is the norm. And if our bodies were just wired correctly, if our nervous systems were healthy, we would like relax and be free and be fine. And the criticism of that is like, this world is not a safe space. So sometimes like the stress we're registering in our bodies is an appropriate response to the lack of safety in the world.
Right.
So yeah, I guess I'm just curious about how you help clients navigate that, having like appropriate armoring, but like knowing when to relax and find portals of healing.
Yes. I mean, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, you can never ask someone to be in that state all the time, which is why I feel like scheduling in practices is really important. So having your tools. So if it's doing some bone breathing before you go to bed at night, if it's doing some qigong practice in the morning, if it's doing some sunning and closing your eyes and drinking in the sunlight to just, reset your endocrine and your nervous system and everything. If you go schedule a massage for an hour, those sacred moments are a time for your nervous system to be able to unwind. It might not be able to be like that all the time, but it's really important to give yourself moments, at least, even just this. Like that made me feel good. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like 5 seconds, not even. And that literally will release, endorphins and hormones that are really good and really healing, especially for women. I mean, oxytocin for us is vital. And, taking a bath, squeezing your body, doing some yoga practice, those things. I heard a talk a long time ago where it was talking about the hormone of success for women is oxytocin. For men, it's testosterone. And so for us, we have to get into that rest and repose space if we want to be successful long term. Because if we can go in that male paradigm, we can, do the male driven testosterone lifestyle and get a lot of shit done and all that. But at some point in that way, we can burn out. Happens to a lot of people. You burn out and then you're like, tapped out. So you have to, I say, especially for women, it's important for us to at least have a practice or two that we can go to, even if it's just deep breathing for a minute. Anybody can find a minute in the day to just deep breathe into the lower belly, and just get everything into a different state. We're gonna be up and down and all around in the world, and that's what it is. But if we can, the more moments we can take to be centered and grounded, it does us good, it does our family good, it does our community good. So that's what I would say to that. Still necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I hear you correctly? Did you refer to one of the breathing practices as bone breathing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think maybe you could take us through how to do that if people want to try something at home?
Yes, I love bone breathing. It's so good. It's from a practice called bone marrow Neikong, and it's essentially you learn how to breathe in the bones, and you learn how to actually expand the walls of the bones. And then when you breathe out, you contract the bones, and you're detoxing this, dirty, murky air. And so you're fortifying the blood, actually. You're fortifying the white blood cells. You're creating stronger marrow. You actually densify your bones. It's great for osteoporosis. It's a really beautiful practice, and it's ancient Taoist practice. So it's very simple. A lot of the practices are very simple. There's the inner smile meditation. You literally smile inside, You smile in your heart, you smile in your organs. So, okay. So you can either close your eyes or you can, look ahead, whatever you want to do. But the way that we generally start the bone breathing is you can lay down. That's kind of the best way to do it. But if you're sitting up, you can still do it that way. And just kind of wiggle your toes a little bit. So you're aware of your toes. And then just imagine your bones in the toes, those little tiny digits. And begin to breathe when you take your in-breath. Imagine that you're breathing inside those first digits in your toes. And imagine with your breath, you're actually expanding the walls of those little tiny bones. And then when you breathe out, nice and slow, you contract the walls of those bones and you squeeze out the dirty, murky air. You squeeze out any congestion, any emotions that you've crystallized in the bones. And then again, just breathe into the bones there in the toes. And then when you breathe out, you squeeze the bones and just try to imagine that you're squeezing the literal bone and that you're not worrying about the muscles. You're not actually squeezing the muscles as you contract. So it might just be in your mind, in your imagination at first. But if you practice this over the course of a couple of weeks, you will actually start to feel your bones expanding and contracting without any of the muscles. So just breathing in through the toes and expanding to the next set of bones in the feet. So wherever the bones are articulating with each other, begin to breathe that breath into those bones and expand the walls of those bones. Squeezing out those bones, squeezing out any dark murky, congested color from the bones. It's almost like you're squeezing and tonifying. You're just releasing. Breathing into the bones in the feet, and actually begin to breathe into the heel as well. So all of those bones that make up the whole entire foot, just breathing into the inside of those bones. Squeezing the walls, flushing out any toxins locked into those bones. Noticing if you feel any energy vibrating or anything interesting, heat, cold, anything interesting in your feet at all. Letting go of any stress or strain in the muscles or the tendons. And just breathing into your entire foot as one skeletal conglomeration. So breathing in and breathing out and just expanding and cleansing your feet. And just noticing all of your particular bones because they're alive, they're moving, they're transferring calcium, and there's all these actions that are taking place in your bones. So just imagining if you can feel the weight and the size and just get inside your bones. And then on the next in-breath, breathe up through the ankles and then breathe into your tibia and fibula. So imagine that you're breathing into the inside of those bones all the way up to the knee joint. And imagining the size and shape of those bones. When you breathe out, just squeezing out, squeezing the walls of those bones. Squeezing out the matrix. And then when you breathe in, just expanding, imagining that those walls of your bones are expanding as you breathe in and revitalizing them with fresh chi energy. Taking a nice deep cleansing breath and squeezing out those bones. Noticing if you feel any kind of lightness in your legs, in your lower legs. And breathing up through the toes, all the way up through the ankles, into the tibia and the fibula, and all the way up into the knee joint, the patella. If you have any tension in your knees, just breathing your breath into that area. Imagine that it's swimming around like water, cleansing in between the bones and the articulation of the knee. Flushing out any toxins, any fibrotic tissue, any inflammation, any arthritic feeling. Just cleansing out the knee joint, flushing out of any dirty, murky air, running it all the way down through the legs and through the feet. And you can allow that dirty, murky air to just go down into the earth. So just imagine that you're detoxing it like fertilizer, you're just releasing it into the earth. And then on your next in-breath, you're breathing up through the toes, that fresh, revitalizing oxygen and chi, all the way up through the kneecap and into that largest bone in your body, the femur. So imagine the very inside of your leg, that big, heavy bone, articulating at the hip, the ball and socket joint, articulating at the knee. And just noticing, seeing if you can imagine the size and the weight of that bone and breathing on the inside of that bone. Breathing in that fresh chi, making that fresh, those white blood cells, revitalizing the marrow. Bringing that sense of lightness, of sparkling, fresh chi energy. And then just squeezing out the entire femur bone, squeezing the matrix of the bone, squeezing out any toxins that are stuck or stagnant or crystallized there. Just releasing out any stuckness, any emotional charges in the bones. The bones are that deepest part of us. They're literally the deepest part. The marrow inside is that deepest part of us. And it is related, it's the yin energy. It's related with the blood. It's related with the kidneys, the ears, the sex organs. So all of all those systems are related. All those organs are related, and they require that deep yin attention. So breathing up through the femur bones into the hips and bringing that breath all the way into the flat bones of the hips and the pelvic girdle. So your entire pelvis is breathing from the inside. Pubic bone, the hips, the sacrum, that cap. Breathing into those flat bones from the inside. Filling up your entire pelvis from the inside of the bones themselves with fresh light, fresh revitalizing chi, and then squeezing the walls as you breathe out, squeezing the matrix of any tensions, any traumas, letting go of any deep-seated tensions in the sacrum. It's often where we carry terror. So the kidneys tend to hold on to fear, but the sacrum holds on to terror. So just breathing on the inside of the sacrum. And then breathing out and squeezing the walls of the sacrum, flushing out any tension, any dirty, murky air. Imagine it just streaming down your legs, through the center of your legs, through the bones, down through the feet, down through the toes, into the earth. Letting it all go because you really don't need it. It's really not helping you. So allowing yourself to be that hollow bone and to drink in that fresh, revitalizing, energizing chi is actually doing you so much more good. So bringing up that breath through the toes, through the femur, through the hip sockets, the ball and socket joints, the sacrum. Then begin to bring the breath up the vertebrae, up the lumbar vertebrae, and up the mid-back, all the way up the spine to the base of the neck. So your entire spine is breathing from the inside. Opening, expanding the walls of the bones, and then squeezing the spine, squeezing out any dirty, murky air. You're only as young as your spine, my teachers say. So the cat-cow motion that we do in yoga, we do in qigong, is so important. And they say with kundalini, that energy, that snake energy is coiled at the base of the spine, which is essentially the sacrum and the first chakra. So as we keep our spine nice and flexible and allow for there to be a flushing of all the stagnation, we allow for there to be this ability of the snake, or we call it the little dragon, to ascend. And we want it to join up with, the third eye. We want it to join up with the crystal palace in the center of the brain. So We are going in between the vertebrae with the breath. We're flushing out any stagnation, any dirty, murky air, any tensions, any pains that we hold in the back. We're flushing that out. And all the nerves that come out of the spine are innervating the organs. So just releasing anything that's been caught and stuck, maybe even years. We're expanding the walls, giving more spaciousness to the vertebrae. Bringing the breath all the way through the toes, up through the legs, up through the pelvic girdle, up through the spine, and begin to breathe the breath out into the rib cage. So you're actually breathing into the insides of those flat, curved bones of the ribs. So you might feel the ribs expanding as your breath opens up, but you're also breathing on the very, very inside of those thinner rib bones, where they articulate with the spine, breathing from there into the entire expanse of the ribs from the inside. Squeezing out any tension there. Breathing as deep as you can into your lungs and into your ribs themselves. Squeezing out any tensions from the ribs themselves. Revitalizing the chi, revitalizing the marrow inside the ribs as well. Squeezing out the ribs, flushing out any stuck energy, any tension from being able to breathe fully. Our breath is life, so the more that we can free up our breath, the more freedom we have. Breathing up through the ribs and breathing all the way to the front of the attachment of the ribs, which is the sternum, right in the front of the chest. My teacher, Mantak Chia, talks about the sternum being a place where hatred can crystallize. And that it's almost like you have to, use knuckles and tools to actually get it out of the sternum itself. You have to just break up those crystals of emotional charge in the sternum. Right in front of the heart. So any of that emotional stuff that we harbor gets stuck there often. You can kind of tap on it. You can rub it with your knuckles. It can be pretty painful. So breathing into the sternum on the inside of that flat bone. Breathe into the heart. And when this is freed up too, the heart energy can expand more. We have that beautiful torus of energy that expands from the heart. And some people, we feel it's so bright and brilliant and beautiful and shining, and it just expands and extends into a room way before they, even step into the room. And, it's like everything is freed up. So that's what we want to do. We want to be in that place of ever expanding love and compassion. That heart, organ is the emperor or the empress of the entire body, where we hear God, where we hear divine, voice. So breathing into the sternum and freeing up any tension that we're holding there. Squeezing out the sternum, squeezing out the ribs, the spine, just wringing it out, letting all of that energy flow down through the feet into the earth. You might notice some heat in different parts of your body. It can be all kinds of sensations that you feel. So just bringing the breath up again through the legs, through the spine, through the sternum, all the way up into the collarbones, and to the scapula, those flat bones on the back, the shoulder girdle. So breathing into the collarbones, breathing into the ball and socket joint of the shoulders, and breathing into the scapula on your back. A lot of people hold tension in the scapula, so just breathing into any areas of tension you might have there, and then just squeezing those bones from the inside, flushing out, flushing down the back, down the body, down the legs, down the feet, through the toes, squeezing out. Again, breathing, filling up the scapula from the inside, filling up the collarbones, filling up the ball and socket joint with fresh, revitalizing chi. And then squeezing the walls, flushing out any tensions that you've held there, maybe for years. And then on your next in-breath, breathing up through the feet, up through the spine, up through the shoulders, and all the way down into the humerus of the arm. So breathing into that central bone in your arm, both of your arms, and expanding the walls of that funny bone. Squeezing from the inside without the muscles, squeezing the humerus bone, squeezing, and you can actually let that energy squeeze out through the arm, down the fingers. Breathing into the humerus and extending to the next set of bones, the radius and the ulna that articulate at the elbow. Breathing into the middle of those bones, expanding the walls of the matrix, helping all those processes that are taking place, the living, breathing bones inside our body. Squeezing out the radius and the ulna. Expanding the walls of those bones, and then moving to the wrist bones and moving into the first bones of the wrist articulation with the radius and the ulna. Breathing into those bones and expanding the walls, squeezing the bones, letting it stream out the fingers, and then breathing into the next set of bones, into the hands. So the entire hand is breathing from the inside. And then squeezing the hand bones from the inside, squeezing them out of any dirty, murky air, letting it stream out the fingertips. And on your next in-breath, breathing into the fingers themselves, breathing into the bones, the digits, the phalanges. Breathing into the inside of those bones. You may even feel some more energy in your hands as you do this, because it really activates the energy from the palms when you breathe into the bones here. And you really feel how you become that channel. As your energy becomes clear and clean, you can actually channel energy in such a good, beautiful way. So breathing into the fingertips and then squeezing out those bones. Breathing all the way up the arms, all the way up the legs, all the way up the spine, all the way up into the neck. A lot of people have neck tensions and issues. Also happens to be our throat chakra, where we speak what's in our heart. So breathing up into those bones, breathing in between the vertebrae of the spine of the neck, all the way up into the atlas, the attachment to the skull. Breathing out, squeezing the vertebrae, clearing any dirty, murky air from the spine, from the neck. Squeezing out, flushing out. Breathing up into the neck, and then breathing up into the skull. So you're going to breathe your breath all the way up into that round, flat skull bone. So your entire skull is breathing fresh, revitalizing chi into the center, where it's producing marrow, where it's transferring chemicals and minerals. So breathing into the skull, breathing into those sutures that are attaching, the bone, those movable joints that attach the skull sections together. Breathing out, flushing out any toxins in the skull. We think, we stress, we hold so much of it in our brain, and the skull is right there, and it's crystallizing things. So just allow the marrow inside the skull bone to expand and fortify and cleanse with this fresh, revitalizing chi. And then on your next in-breath, breathe that fresh energy into the sphenoid bone, which is the bat wing shaped bone behind the eyes. It articulates at the temple, and it sits right behind the eyes, and it actually has a little hole in the middle where it holds the pituitary. So just breathing into that bone behind the eyes and relaxing all the muscles that tend to be stressed as well. Breathing into the muscles, relaxing, breathing into the bone itself, the inside of the sphenoid bone. Flushing out with the out breath, draining out any dirty, murky air, letting it flow out through the feet, through the fingertips. Again, nice deep in-breath to the very center of the brain, that beautiful bat wing bone. Easing out any tension around the bone, around the attachment of muscle to that bone, of tendon. And then breathing into the nose and breathing into the jaw. So now this place where many people also carry quite a bit of tension in the jawbone, the mandible, breathing into those muscles, breathing into the bone itself, and even into the outgrowth of bone, which is the teeth. So imagine you're breathing on the inside of those teeth, which are alive, which are moving micro amounts of blood that are innervated, just breathing fresh, revitalizing chi that is going in and sweeping out toxins, stagnant energy, crystallized emotion. So now you're breathing into your entire skeletal system, from your toes all the way to your teeth. So imagine you are just bones, and you are literally breathing on the inside of your bones, in the walls of the bones, in the marrow of the bones, in that deepest, most profound part of you physically. And imagine that as you breathe in, all of the cells of the marrow, all the white blood cells are just excited and rejuvenating and filling up with that expanding light and power and excitement. And then when you breathe out, you're just flushing any remaining stagnation, any remaining toxins in the body, flushing it out of the bones, back into the earth where it's utilized, it's recycled. It creates this beautiful connection, just like when we breathe in the oxygen of plants, we breathe out the carbon dioxide, and that's their food. So we have this esoteric connection with the earth that it's not always visible, but it's very tangible, especially when we open up to it. So just breathing from the inside as a whole entire skeletal system, breathing in fresh, revitalizing chi that's actually expanding the walls of the bones and contracting the walls of the bones as you breathe out. Feeling that sense of expansion. Letting go. Maybe moving your head a little bit, moving your fingers a little bit, moving your spine a little bit if you need to. Feeling more freedom in your body. If there's any tension still in your body, breathe a little bit more into that area. Just take some nice, deep, energizing sighs, breaths and sighs. And then just gently opening your eyes when you're ready and giving yourself a little rub, a little love, a little gentleness. You might feel really energized.
That was so beautiful.
Good, right? Oh, I feel good.
Wow. I feel good too. I had no idea how much I needed that. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't done it for a minute, so that was nice. It's really nice.
It's nice to know that there's an ancient practice to revitalize the bones. I think I've had more of a state of hopelessness around bone health because we get taught in the West that these are things that do not regenerate for us.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's absolutely not true. I mean, celery juice for one is good for regenerating bone, but yeah, the bone breathing, the bone marrow nekong is incredibly powerful. And, you know, they've done studies where they measure the bone density and it does densify bone. And, you know, you can jump on a trampoline and densify bone that way. You know, there's a lot of different ways. I was going to say something else. Oh, so the other part of that, after you cleanse the bones, you want to learn that practice first, and then you do the bone packing. So then you actually pack crystals of chi in your bones. So at that point, that's when you create this force field of energy around you of protection. And that's when you're really, you know, fortifying your bone strength. You can also, there's these really cool tools. I have a bamboo one and I have a steel one. The steel one's more for the bones. It's like a bunch of skinny steel rods, and you hit the body. You can even do it with just your hand. You could use a chi knife, and you hit the body, you hit the bones, and it's it helps to also densify and break up stuff. It's actually a part of stem cell qigong, we call it. So there's a lot of things, you know. There's so many things. There's a lot of hope in it.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those kind of divine right time things for me with my own body stuff at this moment. So I really value that you took us through that beautiful meditation. And I also just want to say for viewers who are a little bit more like skeptical or science centric in a way where it's hard for them to envision these kinds of interior processes being affected by the way that we think, like there are really good studies on things, even like the power of positive thinking or the placebo effect. So if that needs to be your way in, if that needs to be your metaphorical way into this work, I have taken skeptics through meditation work, and just the way that we think about things helps us relax in a different way. So it's worth trying. It's worth trying.
Yes, absolutely. Word is born. It's like word becomes material, you know, the more that we think and feel and say, you know, with this practice, you may not feel it at first. And that's, you know, unless you're very energy sensitive. But with consistent practice, that's the thing about Qigong. If you do it once a month for an hour like this, and it's great, but it's better if you do 5 minutes every day and just build on it, because it will build on itself. And if you want to do a little energy experiment, you can practice doing the bone breathing. Maybe just do a 5-minute version of it. Just do all your bones at once, you know, before you go to bed, and do that for like 2 weeks straight every night and see if you don't feel a difference. I pretty much guarantee that you will. That's my word.
Yeah, I immediately feel a difference. And I know from my own kind of awakening into energy work, I'm a beginner, but my awakening into energy work, you develop increased proprioception, that internal sense of the way that your body's moving and things fit against each other as you do this deep thinking and deep relaxing. So as I'm listening to you, I might not have the specific awareness that you do of feeling bone against bone and feeling where each of these things are, but I know that if I practice this over time, I will feel that with more specificity.
Yes.
And that's really exciting to me.
And in the beginning, you can really just touch your bones as you do it to get a sense, or you can look at a diagram of bones so that you're visualizing it and you really internalize it that way. And you go, okay, here's this first joint. Okay, I'm breathing into this bone. Now this one, you know, so that's a good way to really get it on a deeper level when you're starting out. And then you're like, wow, you know, I'm a bunch of bones. It's incredible.
I love that. And it's such a powerful way to do self-touch. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome.
Well, I've really valued this interview with you today. Thank you so much for teaching me about this, teaching our audience about this. How can people get in touch with you, either if they're like in the LA area and want some treatment, or just want to learn from you?
Yeah, absolutely. My sort of archaic website is ari.massagetherapy.com. So that's ari.massagetherapy.com. And, you know, I'm rebuilding it. I definitely am available to do Zoom Qigong sessions. If you're in LA, I can do, you know, one-on-one sessions. And then also the Qigong work, the, you know, spinal work. We do another, like listening to the spine, which is really cool. And then also I work with Toksen, which is a hammer tool. So you do that along the, you know, along the bones and the joints and stuff. So I do a lot of really cool things. And Chi Nei Tsang is not a very widely known treatment. I think there's maybe 4 of us in LA that do it. So it's kind of a rare modality in this area. There's a lot more in the Bay Area, but it's kind of something that has to be experienced. It's, you know, some people, it's multi-layered, and you just, it's so interesting. You go places and there's energy that moves. It's really wild. I mean, we keep everything in our gut, you know, it's a trip. We way more than we are aware of, you know? So yeah. So ari.massagetherapy.com. I'm on Facebook as Ari Evolution Healing Arts. That's ARIEVOLUTION, Ari Evolution Healing Arts. And yeah, I'm on Instagram as Ari Evolutionary, which I kind of post a little bit of everything, not just specifically that, but yeah. So
great. And we'll have all those links in the description below the video so people can click on that. Thank you so much for this interview. I've really learned a lot from you today.
So much. Thank you so much. Thanks for holding this space for it. It was really awesome. I had a great time.